You could have two houses side by side, both of them exactly the same, built by the same builder, same school district, same taxes, same everything, and one can be a great investment and the other one be a very poor investment.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we could have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to help guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life through real estate investing. Now sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. We're so glad to have you today, Mr. Leon, here at the On Purpose Investor Podcast, where we drive one main mission, and that is hyper-intentionality in everything you do in life. And we met you, my wife and I met you about 3 or 4 years ago on a cruise that Bill Cook and friends hosted, and we were super lucky to be able to run into you there. And as soon as I met you, a good friend of mine, Carrie Milligan, said, you need to go eat with Leon. And you need to just listen to him talk. Don't say a word, just listen to him talk. And my wife and I were like, we could do that. We can do that. And so we went and sat down at a table with Mr. Leon. I believe your wife was there. And we just sat down and talked and just listened to what you had to say. So when I started kicking off the podcast, I said, one day I'm going to do interviews. And when I start doing those interviews, I would love to have Mr. Leon on because his story is amazing and what he teaches and preaches is just super relevant and very important for aspiring young new investors and even seasoned investors need to hear. With that all being said, Mr. Leon, what do you and where do you invest?
Well, through the years, and I started out in 1975, a long time ago. I was in the military targeting nuclear missiles, and I had from time to time a lot of time on my hands, so I read a lot. And I was always interested in real estate, so I sold estate books. And lucky enough to run into a guy who said, hey, you need to get your broker's license, and I did that. And went with a franchise company in the Kansas City area, actually Warrensburg, Missouri. And after I got out of the military, I moved to Lee's Summit and managed an office for a guy. So my background was I learned the basics of real estate law and whatnot. And back in those days, we did all the summer closings in our office. So we actually did the deeds and the closing statements. So I had 2 secretaries. We didn't have computers. They typed them. So I learned a lot back in those days and had a real good basis for the fundamentals. I had an investment that just kind of, the good Lord just hit me in the face with it, just kept slapping me in the face with it till I finally recognized what it was. And from that, I could see how I could repeat those what I'd just done, and we did a bunch of that, and it was very, very productive. I don't know how much you want me to get, but what it was, I was a broker, and there was a guy across the street, a service station, and a guy changed my oil. I knew him, and I didn't have a warm meal at home for a couple of years because we were so busy with about 50 sales agents. So I'd run across to the bar on the other corner and get a hot dog. And this guy, I ran into him and he said, look, I need to sell my house. I said, okay. And I'm thinking list and sell. So went out Saturday morning and did a market analysis and told him, it's a 4-bath house, full basement, 2-car garage, in a nice subdivision. And this was in the 70s. And I said, look, I think we can sell it for $55,000. He said, well, I need to sell it fast. And I said, well, maybe let's list it at $49 if that works for you. And he said, well, I need to really sell it fast. And he went back to his bedroom and came out with a letter that he was 3 months behind in his payments and he was about to be foreclosed on. So he said, why don't you buy it from me? And I said, well, how much you want for it? He said, I'll take what I paid for it 3 years ago. I said, what was that? He said, 21.9. So I ended up buying that house subject to, after getting a $5,000 IRS lien off for $500, paying the ex-wife $800 and a few other things. I moved in that house, and that's where my first child was brought home to. But then so I bought it pre-foreclosure. So I thought, how can I find more of these? And then I realized they advertised it in the paper. So, I'm in a bumper car maze trying to, find my way. And I picked up 25,000 in equity in that thing. And I said, well, dadgum, I like this a lot better than being a broker. And so that started me on that deal. So we bought a ton of pre-foreclosures. It was years later before we ever bought any at the steps. But another thing that happened along about that time, 1978, I ended up somehow or another in a 2-day seminar with Jack Miller and John Schaub, and changed my whole life. I mean, it just totally changed my whole life from what I learned there. And, we started buying houses and keeping as many of them as we could. And, we've done that through the years. And my biggest regret, I guess you would say, is selling a bunch of houses that I wish I'd never sold. That one house is probably close to 300,000 now. And somewhere way back along the way, I screwed up. I sold it. So, my advice is, if you can get a property and hang on to it, just live, get it financed correctly, safely, and just keep it. Just live. Learn the property management. You need to learn to do that. If not, have some people you trust to put it out there on a master lease, preferably. And we've bought mobile home parks. We have one right now. We bought some big ones, storage units, commercial buildings, all of those things through the years. But my favorite thing is single family houses or mobile homes on a lot, or 1 acre lots where we can rent out the land to someone with their mobile home. That's one of my favorite. So I tend to go that. I don't like multifamily. We've owned multifamily. Which attracts a different kind of tenant. They're more needy. When we put people in our houses, I learned property management from Jack Miller, and then Dave Tilney is so good at it that that's the way, almost exactly the same system he uses. No deposits, $100 discount, the whole bit. And starting out. Goal. And that goal was to be able to get up in the morning, go do anything I wanted to do that day, and my income not be based on what I mentally or physically did that day. Almost worked out. It's almost worked out. But I'm still active managing our properties, and we still look for the low-hanging fruit. And I'll be 70 years old next week. And we've been really fortunate. We bought several other businesses, owned other businesses like insurance agencies, H&R Block, and that's, through the years, which we ate out of those and never spent any of our real estate money. We just kept pouring it back in there. And finally, we decided we've sold all of our businesses, and we're strictly on note income and rental income. And, I'm almost to that point, but I enjoy doing what we're doing right now. I don't get paid a dime for it. I was on 2 podcasts yesterday. I don't get paid a dime for it, but I like helping people and I like teaching.
We love that about you, Mr. Leon.
Anyway,
so you said a few things when you first got started that we're not going to get into on this episode, but just to bring people up to speed if they're not aware, you bought that property subject to. That is a very I would call that an advanced strategy, but that was your first deal. So it was a very unique thing that you were able to do. I mean, you were in the real estate realm, so you were probably somewhat.
We
Go
were
ahead.
doing hundreds of subject twos back in those days. When I do the deed, it would go right in the deed. So we were doing tons of them. I knew how to do it, but just not for me.
Right. And the beauty behind that subject too is that you get to get their interest rate. So I mean, it's great when you find a good loan that you can take subject to, because you get to, take on that interest rate, and then you take on the property, but they get to keep that debt. So it's a great way to solve their problem, if they're upside down or whatnot, and you solve their problem and you solve your problem. You solve your problem of wanting that property to cash flow, and you solve their problem of being in a tight and rough situation.
Exactly.
So I love that one.
Exactly.
And then you talked about foreclosures, and I'm not sure what type of market we're heading into in the future, but I do think that foreclosure auctions and subject to are going to be some very important strategies moving into it.
Just got to be careful on the subject twos. I have actually right now I've paid all mine off. I don't have any subject twos. If I do one, it'll probably be short term, and I'm wondering if some of those foreclosures aren't going to be because those loans are getting called for whatever reason from other people who have taken them subject to. So something to think about there. Just their action in that area.
Absolutely. Anytime you go down any strategy or any course, you want to make sure you have a really good exit strategy and don't just assume that it's always going to work. So I think that's very important to keep in mind.
Exactly.
So you said that from the very beginning, you had a goal that you wanted to wake up and not have to go and perform any mental or physical energy in exchange for money. And that was kind of, when you harnessed that goal, when you got that goal together, did that transform into, I need this many single family rentals and that would cash flow X amount of money a month? And so that would put together this grand plan?
I was thinking I was going to need 50 of them. And one time I'm sitting with Jack Miller, and he said, no, you don't need that. You just need 10. That's what he said. And we've had as many with me and my sons, over 100 at one time, 120 or 30 or long in there. And we're down. We don't have near that many now. And that's a good thing. I don't want it to be the tail that wags the dog in my case. And there's a point in your life when freedom and peace should be everyone's ultimate goal. And it's different for everyone. And you can make a list, freedom from or freedom to kind of deals. And just the peace that comes with that. And that's the most important thing in life, is freedom and peace. And you need to have a certain number of amount of income that will supply you with all your basic needs, and then where you can go do other things that you want to do. And a lot of people ask all the time, well, how many houses do you have? How many houses do you have? I've got 70 and I've got 90, and see, to me that means absolutely zero. What if they have those on short-term financing and they got balloons coming due? Or what if they're not cash flowing? What if they're not able to manage it? And what really matters is how much you go to the bank with every month. And you could have two houses side by side, both of them exactly the same, built by the same builder, same school district, same taxes, same everything, and one can be a great investment and the other one would be a very poor investment. And there's one word I'll add two words to it. It's financing, and it's safe financing. Can make one a great investment and the other one not. So if you good, safe financing without the balloons, balloons are for clowns. I know you've heard that. And you're cash flowing, you're covering all your expenses, and a reserve for maintenance, and then a little bit to put in your pocket for management, are free and clear. And then that starts to make a big difference. You know, a guy with 15 free and clear houses is way better than a guy with houses that's might be having loans coming due or whatever. You know, it's not how many chickens you have, but how many you have that's laying.
That's right. And just like Gary Johnson said, if I came up to you and told you I have 100 rental properties, what would that make you? How would you react? And a lot of people in the room said, "Wow, that's impressive." He said, "But what if I told you none of them cash flowed?" And that just changes your perception of it.
Exactly.
And, when I tell people, how many homes we have in our portfolio, my wife and I, they have a hard time rationalizing, how do you make financial freedom? How are you financially free with only 16 houses? And it's just like you said, it's the financing. We bought them smart and we financed them smart. So, and that's one of those things that we knew going into this, that we had to avoid all those pitfalls that investors that went belly up in 2008 went through. We had to avoid that. And a lot of that is your financing with ARMs, the adjustable rate mortgages, or financing with balloons. So we completely avoided that.
That's good. That's really good. I didn't even 2008, and I've been through other rough times, like in 1980. By then, I'd accumulated some. It's except for one instance there, which I worked my way through. That's a whole show. And 2008, it was like, hey, just collect rent and go do your thing. And we did pick up some more real estate during that time, which was good. And of course, we still do. And let me say something. I was thinking yesterday, and it never came up on any one of the other podcasts, but I was trying to think back. I think I have, in 47 years, only went to the bank or mortgage company to buy 3 different properties all that time. It's either been subject to owner finance, and now I have refinanced some, but I didn't get money to go buy them. And only on 3 properties. And one of those was using my VA loan to buy a duplex and live in one side of it right when I got out of the military.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Leon. We appreciate that. So you talked through a lot of different things through there, and honestly, the story is very inspiring and hopefully encouraging. So you said when you first started, you just wanted enough money left over after paying all the bills that you could put a little bit in your pocket. Did you identify early on, I need this much money in my pocket to not have to keep running my brokerage, or to allow my wife or significant other to not have to work? Did you have in mind when you began?
I didn't. I did not.
Yep.
I was thinking, hey, I'll be a millionaire by the time I'm 40. That was kind of the thing.
Right.
But, I'll be honest, I did not have really, other than that first encounter with Jack and John, I didn't have any good local mentors. And I grew up really, and, I didn't have a lot of guidance in that area. And it wasn't to later years that I started really developing more specific goals, and of course, with inflation since 1980, we've had quite a bit of price increases and inflation, and it tends to take a little more, as time goes on, just to stay even, if you will. But I didn't have a specific amount, I didn't. I just kept buying.
Right. Do you feel like when you did, you said later started finding mentors or finding teachers that were teaching on the art of, strategizing on what you're buying, how you're buying, and, to what end are you doing this? Do you feel like if you started with that in mind, that that your early years might have looked different?
Oh, I would have been light years ahead. I really would have. I would have never sold some of the properties that I sold. And yeah, if I had laid out, I think, and I'll just give you, I'll tell you a quick side story about my oldest son.
Okay.
When he was
Mhm.
10 years old, he wanted to go hunting with me in Missouri. And me and a friend of mine, a CPA guy, we camped out and it got extremely cold. And my son kept wanting to go. And he said, well, my own gun. Can I go with you? And I said, sure. So he said, I'm going to mow grass. And so how much, how much do you get paid to, and he started writing his goals down. Okay. And he wrote down how many yards he had to mow and how much he would get paid from each one. And he knocked on 104 doors and got six people. No, he knocked on 106 doors, got four people to let him mow their grass. And by summertime, he had made $1,000 and he had to buy his own gun, da 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 da. Took him hunting, killed his first deer, and he has been a goal setter like that ever since then. And that's what you really need to do.
Mhm.
Like you're saying, if I'd had someone to give me direction early in life, I would have not been in a bumper car maze.
Right.
So anyway, and I knew that I was not a good employee. I was not a good employee at all. So I've always pretty much been self-employed, own my own business and our businesses, and never stopped buying real estate because I knew that's where your wealth would be if you accumulate enough houses. I knew right off the bat, I'd see people in the brokerage business that all their wealth was in their house. All the, and so my thought is, why not own 100 houses?
There you go.
It's just that simple.
Right. So when it comes to goal setting, absolutely, measuring out a strategic plan, figuring out how you're going to get there, what are the actionable steps along the way. But it's one of those things like you can't just set a target and expect to reach that target without the other things that go into it. And that's some of the things that we teach is, the mindset, the lifestyle, the big reason why you're doing it all. That's what we try to get our listeners to understand. And I'd just like to ask you, your mindset when you first got specifically, when it comes to money, when you first got started. I know you said you came from, an under affluent part of Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you probably had a very scarce mindset when it came to money. Money don't come by easy. So did you have trouble early on when it came to understanding the responsibilities of wealth and handling money?
Probably. I thought I had to have a big Lincoln Town Car to be a real estate broker, and of course, down that road. But after a while, I discovered that you got to live beneath your means and uh, keep investing and pay tithing and all those. But as far as I never set out to be the richest guy in town or in the state or any of those kind of things, because a lot of times it becomes a tail that wags the dog and you lose your freedom and peace with it. And so it's a
Right.
delicate balance, family first, and and I've made a lot of mistakes. I have to tell you, I wouldn't be truthful if I didn't say, hey, I'll fix along the way. But if you're consistent and persistent and realize, I guess something else that I realized early on is, like I said, it didn't make a good employee, and I didn't like trading hours for dollars. And I also knew
Mm-hmm.
that if you buy assets and own your own business, you can control things a little bit more. But especially if you own assets that's bringing an income in, and you
Right.
turn your earned income dollars into capital income dollars. You get away
Right.
from earned income. And that was one of my goals. And I've told my kids, work really, really hard. Work is noble, but why not work for unearned income? Have a
Yes.
goal to work towards unearned income and get away from the earned income if you possibly can and as quick as you can. And
Right.
they're well well, my oldest son's, he's definitely there, and my youngest, who he's pretty much there, but he's still doing a lot of wholesaling. You know.
Yeah. The thing about wholesaling is, it's not passive at all, because once you stop hunting leads and getting contracts to assign, that money stops too.
That's
And
exactly right.
that's one of the big things I am disheartened by this whole TikTok generation is
Oh gosh.
there's a lot of people on that platform that are pushing people to be wholesalers and say you can be a real estate investor and you can make $50,000 to $100,000 a month doing it. While that may be true, there's not always going to be a season in our real estate cycle that is going to work. And when that season changes, those people are going to be left, with empty pockets, because they're going to be adapting this lifestyle of 50 to 100 grand a month, and they're going to be upside down. They're going to be in a bad spot. And I hope people can approach this TikTok fad or whatever you call it with just take it with a grain. While it is a good tool to use to start buying your own buy and holds and start buying rentals, it shouldn't be squeeze, in my opinion.
Exactly. And the point I made yesterday on one of those podcasts, and they're and most of their clientele are flippers and wholesalers and that sort of thing. And I said, look, those folks leave a lot of money laying on the table, and they might even be leaving their wealth on the table. And if they'll learn how to do some creative financing, and instead of just trying to get something 60 cents on the dollar all the time, and if they can't, they walk out the door. I said, look, I'll pay full market value if I get the right terms. I want wholesale terms.
Absolutely.
And it was almost like it's foreign to a lot of those folks.
Mm-hmm.
I know a guy out west. I'm not going to say his name. He's well known, and I know this guy makes $40,000 or $50,000 a month wholesaling. He has one, so wealth.
Right. And that's something that a lot of people come to me and they're asking, how did you get started in real estate? What's the secret? How did you make it to financial freedom? And while there's no, honestly, it is just get up and do it. You got to hustle. You got to find what tools are in your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
If your tool is you're a people person, you can get out there and knock on doors and find sellers. But if your tool is that you're really good at finance and you're good at numbers, but you're not a people person, there is a shtick for you as well. But, you got to utilize the tools in your toolbox, and
Exactly.
You got to find a way to create passive income that's going to continue to generate and build your wealth. Because if you're doing this just for income, what you're doing is you're supporting your lifestyle, your individual lifestyle. You're not looking to build a wealth system that can be passed generation to generation. You're not looking to educate those around you on how to build generational wealth. I think you're doing a huge disservice because you may not have immediate family like a wife or kids, but you definitely have people that surround you in your day-to-day life that see what you do. And if all you're showing them is that you value money over building wealth, then you're showing them that it's all about the dollar bills in your pocket, not about the wealth that you can stand on. And maybe you teach them through the process that they can create a better future for their family. I don't know. I get pretty worked up over people that are just, I want to have high income for the month and every month, and I'm just going to hustle to do it. It grinds my gears a little.
Well, and it does mine, and it's kind of funny that you see these guys and they come out and they learn a little bit, make a good bit of money. They're hustlers, and the next picture you see them is standing in front of a fancy sports car, and that is the appearance of wealth. There's a difference between real wealth and the appearance of wealth. And I think what you're doing with the On Purpose Investor is really awesome, because, if I'd had what you're teaching early on in conjunction with my real estate knowledge, I would have been light years ahead. And I don't think there's laying it out for people. You know, everybody wants to learn how to scale up. Everybody wants to learn how to wholesale. Everybody wants to learn how to be a guru. And most of the folks don't know anything, don't know what a deed is. They don't know what a deed of trust or a mortgage is. They don't know what an option is. They don't know what an installment sale is. And you got to learn the fundamental. You know, I went to Rockhurst University. It was called Rockhurst College back then. They had a really good real estate program. I took every real estate class they had on finance, on and on and on. I went to the University of Southern Mississippi. I got every real estate class they had, from property management to residential appraisals, commercial appraisals, finance, real estate law, all of those things, you know, is a good base. And then I was fortunate enough to have a professor who taught the finance, and he made us work on interest formulas by hand. So we learned how to do that, you know, how to figure NI, PV, FV, all with a formula. So, you know, you should go get and then combine that knowledge with what you are teaching will be kind of the guide or the outline that they can follow to put that knowledge to work to get to a point where they're out of the rat race, you know, like the cash flow game. They're out of the rat race.
Yeah.
And it's great to be out of the rat race. I tell you that, you know, you've heard Pete and all those guys talk about, you know, the beginner, the estate builder, and the spender.
Mm-hmm.
And that don't mean that I still don't look for deals and do deals. And we have some. I made an offer that didn't get accepted a couple of weeks ago on a big, huge project. But at the same time, I like to fly fish, and I like to be standing in the stream 3 or 4 months out of the year. And so, you know, we've been doing that for a while.
And your real estate provides you that freedom to make that choice every day.
Exactly.
That you don't have to get up and put out physical or mental exertion in exchange for a dollar bill. You get to make the choice.
That's right. You know, and look, the older you get, the faster the months go by for whatever reason. And it seems like, man, we just got all the money deposited and here it comes again.
Yep. That's not a bad problem to have, right, Mr. Leon?
Not at all. Not at all.
But the tools of real estate investing, there are so many tools out there. There's so many terms out there. But unless you know what exactly are you doing with it, where exactly do you want to go with it, how will you know when you have enough? How will you know not to turn this journey toward peace and freedom into just another job? Because if you forget that peace and freedom is the destination, you'll never arrive there, and it will just turn into another job. And that's not the goal.
Right. You know, there's so many people that go and go to college, doctorates, or go into some career. And I like to say it this way: they get to they climb the ladder of success, and they get up to the top, and they realize it's leaning against the wrong building. You know, there's doctors. I know doctors who hate being doctors. We, through our church, a few years ago, my wife and I volunteered, and we ended up doing it for about 4 years, helping people get JOBs. And of course, I talked to them about, you know, you get that JOB and then you learn how to make unearned income. But we had one young guy who had gone and gotten his master's in like occupational therapy or one of those kind of therapies. You know, he was a specialist, sharp young guy. And he said he was so excited his first day at work to be out of school and have a job and have an income coming in. And he said his second day of work, he absolutely hated it. And it was not something he wanted to do. and we helped him change careers. But that happens to just a lot of people that don't do what they go get their degrees in or what they think they want to do.
Our goal is to make sure people, when they end up in their 80s, 90s, or if they make it to 100, and they're laying there with everyone that is around them, and they're taking their final days, I want them to be able to sit up, look around them, and be extremely proud of everything they did, and be able to tell every person in that room, it was worth it. I'm glad that I went down the path I went down, because, so many times, people can get into a vehicle and drive to work, and they get to work and they have no idea what happened. They don't know. Mm-hmm. They can't remember the red lights they stopped at. They don't remember the car that honked at them at the intersection. All they remember is, well, they kind of woke up and now they're at their job. Mm-hmm. I don't want people to end up at the end of their life to just open their eyes and be like, what just happened? Because without hyper intentionality, that's going to happen.
Exactly.
And my goal is to create a life of, financial freedom, peace, and just the ability to create memories when you need to make them, when you want to make them, with as many people as you want to make them with, and just have a life worth living. That's so huge for us. Tiffany came up with the phrase, you only get one life, so live it purposefully. And that's kind of our big message that we try to push across.
I think it's a great title for your book. And I think you're going to help a lot of people with it. I think it's going to be you're going to help. Zig Ziglar says, his statement that if you help enough other people get what they want, you can get what you want. So if you can help enough other people, and that can be broken down in so many ways, then you can have freedom and peace. It's just like somebody's got a vacant house. They're 2 years behind in taxes. The air conditioning's out on it. They don't have money to fix it up. They don't have the wherewithal. And you go buy that house and take that problem from them, solve that problem. You just gave them freedom and peace.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Go give people freedom and peace as much as you can. And I think your guidelines that you have, your 5 steps, if people will follow those, will lead them to freedom and peace. Because if they're doing it on purpose, most people have all these goals. I want to own 40 houses. I want to make $1 million a year. I want to do this. I want to do that. But what they really, really want is freedom and peace. But they don't know that. They're not going after that on purpose.
No kidding. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping this up, Mr. Leon. I got 5 questions for you. First, what advice would you give investors that are trying to get started today?
Well, first of all, read your book, so they'll have some guidelines to go by. Pick out some of the good seminars like you and I go to. The Gary Jobs, the John Hyers, Pete Fortunato's, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. Dyke Spotiford.
Bill Cook.
Bill Cook. And don't go just once. Go a bunch of times. Because and don't stop going. You just, and it'll give you some, because you meet with people outside the meeting, and it'll give you renewed energy, and it'll help you keep your direction that you want to go. And so that would be my advice. Education, like Jimmy Napier said in his book, if you think education's expensive, try ignorance.
There you go. There's no cost comparable to that, huh?
That's right.
All right. So do you have any YouTube or podcast shows that you would recommend our listeners to check out, like someone that you follow?
I don't listen to a whole bunch of those. There's so many of them here. And, they want to show the guy making, $100 million a month and whatnot. And my goal has been to appeal to the guy who's done one deal or never done a deal. The average guy who can't look at somebody doing 100 deals, they can't see themselves doing that, and encourage them to go do 1 or 5 or 10, and not feel like they're a loser because that's all they're doing, because you can be very successful doing that.
Absolutely.
I read a lot of books, and those guys that I just named, I like to go to their seminars over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So
there you go. So in exchange for a podcast or a YouTube, start going to seminars.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to listen to the podcast from them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I'm at my point in my life, I'm probably thinking more about fly fishing.
There you go. Well, if our listeners want to find out more about the fly fishing, I'll have them reach out to you to get some tips and tricks on that.
All right.
Mr. Leon, if you had to pick one book that you feel made the biggest impact on your life, which book would that be?
Oh my, I can't say just one. In real estate, I'd have to say that the Invest in Debt by Jimmy Napier was a biggie, because it's a new book, that Adrian Smoot did on mobile homes. I think, people need to be looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
Cash Flow Quadrant, some of those were really good.
That's Rocky, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Right. Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was a good book.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, I got the book.
Okay.
Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. I don't know if you've ever read that or not, but it pays to read that one real often. I
was going to say, I flew down to Tampa recently, and I just reread that book. And so a couple of weeks ago, it's short enough down on a flight back, but it's so powerful to just put your eyes in the lens of someone in a time where wealth was very, disproportionate. And there were the kings and the rulers, and then there were everyone else. And then this man in Babylon, just a simple thing, put money in your pocket every time you make money. It's just, the concept is amazing.
It's a great overall framework of things to look at, kind of like your book as far as guiding you with your goals and whatnot and being on purpose.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a great one. Well, John Schaub's Making It Big on Little Deals. There's a great book too.
And he also did the Create Wealth One House at a Time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. That was the title of his original seminar, but it's the same thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Building Wealth One House at a Time on Amazon.
That was an early book I read, and was one that I was like, that's my goal. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach for 10 more years, and then I'm going to go. And then we kind of dove off the deep end and ended up buying 5 or 10. It's it accelerated really fast. All right, Mr. Leon, last question. How can our listeners get in touch with you or follow you on your journey if they want to learn more about fly fish you do in your life?
Facebook's probably the best way. I don't do a lot on Instagram and those kind of things, but Facebook. And then I'm not a techie. Adam set up a Leon Johnson page, and I should post on it more often, but check it out. And there's a video on a podcast I did on Real Estate Disrupt. You just do a search for Leon Johnson Real Estate. I think it's been viewed about 65,000 times.
We'll make sure that link gets in the show notes for this episode. That way people can reference it pretty quickly.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Absolutely. Right. Well, Mr. Leon, it has been insanely beneficial, and just I've thorough conversation today. We appreciate people that share our vision and our just what we are working to do to create more hyper intentionality and what our investors are doing in their daily lives to create that generational wealth and honestly to create financial freedom and peace. So we thank you very much. And
well, thank you for the opportunity of being on here. And I think you're going to help a whole bunch of people down the road. You could be their turning point in their life.
Well, we sure hope so. All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll be seeing you at the next seminar.
All right. Good deal. Take care.
Are you ready to discover and build your dream life? Then it's time to become a Pathfinder. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tips and tricks to help you find your path and get the latest from our blog. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this show, share it with friends, family, and fellow investors. See you next time at the On Purpose Investor Podcast.